So I was just thinking the other day, the last time I actually spoke with you. Uh,
Oh, it's embarrassing. Don't even bring it up. Whatever it
no, I
is.
mean I have to. I mean, yeah, it is embarrassing, but I
I
mean,
see you on this is probably true of 8 to 10 old friends that I see online all the time on Facebook, and all I do is like once in a while, one or two words. Some people have been pissed at me lately too. Like, what is it with that? How come you never interact? And I'm just like, I just don't. I know when I get into Facebook that I just get lost, and I'm trying to go back to meaningful connections like this and away from that world. But anyway,
well, no, look,
I live vicariously through you because I read your posts. So I'm one of those
well,
people. I lurk and read the post, but I don't say much.
I do agree with you about the lack of connection. That I mean, back in the day when in that time, it was a whole different thing happening. And you either picked up the phone or you got in your car and you went and you got together with your friends. And nowadays, technology, I love technology, I'm in technology, but it does kind of hinder that real, authentic, genuine interaction. Like you're saying, it is a generational thing. And that's part of that detachment that I see happening. And when I deal with younger folk, they would say like, I'll be like, oh, I'll give you a call later. And they're like, no, just shoot me a text. And I'm like, well, if I want to have a conversation, I don't want to have a conversation with you on a text. First of all, my thumbs are just like, I'm 57, bro. My thumbs, and they're big. Look at how big my thumbs are.
I know.
And
I can't text at all.
I start texting, and then all of a sudden, I looked at what I'm getting ready to hit send on, and I'm like, oh, wow, this texting machine or texting mechanism is going to make me sound like a babbling idiot because it changes all of my words.
Yeah, I mean, text is a very specific and useful tool. Hey, I'm at a concert. I can't talk right now. Or,
Right.
I'm going to be 5 minutes late. But you'd have people basically making life decisions over text. And that's not just generational. That's insane. That's just, we're using technology to do really, to shortchange human relationships. So that's, and I'm really concerned about that, how it relates to Facebook. I mean, one way it's wonderful because I see what my friends are doing and I have, it's so nice to, but as far as any kind of depth, it really doesn't exist. It's not.
The last time that I really got involved in an extremely long text was when I was going through a breakup with a girlfriend like 4 years ago. And I got to this point because I got caught up in it, and I'm just like, I was doing a job, I was painting a house, and something happened, and I was just like, and I stopped painting, and I would text, and I would go back to painting, and then I would stop painting, and it went on for a long time. And after that whole situation, I realized this is crazy. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to do that.
For no other reason, it's wildly inefficient. The idea, I've had this conversation with especially people in the 20s and 30s. They're like, oh, no, it's easier. No, it isn't. If you call me in 5 minutes, we can cover what would take us 3 hours to do in text.
Exactly. And you will also understand the context of the message that's being conveyed, rather than looking at a message on this little screen and going like, wait a minute, what's that word mean? And why do you say that? What does it mean by that? Yeah, I really think that adds so much more problems to all just everyday communication with people. So,
and now we have Zoom. I know a lot of people are burned out on Zoom, but I'm just like, are you kidding me? You actually get to see the person. It's just how our whole business moved online since COVID. And it's been, I thought it was a crazy thing. Like, who would do this kind of stuff online? But it's been miraculous because now you're not just talking on the phone. I mean, all these technologies have value, but in terms of highest value of communication, this is it. Interaction live with visuals is way beyond what text or email or any of those things are. You actually get to, I'd rather be with you in person, but that's the next level. Text is like way down.
Right. Well, I tell you what, this is, I think, the 4th or 5th time that I've used Zoom. And then I really, what's the feature on iPhones that they have, the FaceTime or whatever?
FaceTime,
I think I've only used that maybe twice. And
you are old.
You know what? I am. I admit it. I'm happy about, and I will say that I'm proud to be old because there's.
But you know what? I'm still older than you, though.
Oh, you are? How old are you?
I'm 58.
Oh, so you're short. You're like close. It's like razor thin.
I'm still your elder, Drake.
That's true, and that's why I respect you, and I will always say that. So, because I do respect my elders.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question here: is how in the world did you decide that you wanted to come into Buffalo and purchase this club from these two guys from Rochester who had opened the Icon originally? What was it that motivated you?
Well, I think it's just because George was so sexy, actually, to tell you the truth.
Oh my God! Wait a minute! Oh! I just hurt myself. I will say this about George: that he had a badass car, that convertible.
Well, that's what made him sexy.
Well, and then
I've been trying to be George ever since, but I can't. Do it.
Yeah, I don't want to be George. I will say that he had that badass apartment that was right around the block from Icon.
Badass apartment, badass car.
That place was.
And he wanted to sell the club. I'm like, there's something wrong here. You got everything. You're young. You got a badass apartment. You got a car. And you want to sell this thing that's so cool or has the potential to be so cool. I mean, the Icon was very cool when I got there. It's not like I made it cool, right? I mean, it was a cool place.
I will agree with you on a certain point on that, but I will say that because I knew those guys from Rochester. I was going to Rochester to DJ at Club Zero. And there was that rumble going on that they were going to open a club in Buffalo. And I really didn't know about it at the first point. And then I started hearing more and more. And then I started hearing, oh yeah, it's a definite thing. So they came in, they came into Buffalo from Rochester, which was a big challenge in itself because I think, and like I know I've worked in Rochester and I worked in Buffalo, the crowds were very kind of different. So when you came in there and basically took over, I will say that was the point where Icon just took off. The levels that were there were you couldn't even describe.
Well, I was really, to go back to what you were asking before, I was really inspired by what was going on the West Coast. That's how I came to it. I knew what was going on with Zero. I knew what was going on with the Icon through my brother David. He was working there. I was living in between San Diego and LA, and I had been involved in some really, really cool underground, the underground scene in LA at the time, which was Dirtbox was one club, the other was Plastic Passion. There was a bunch of just, I mean, real underground pre-rave. What morphed into the rave world was a lot of was just LA, New York, San Francisco, a lot of London have had multiple different iterations of underground club scenes, but this was a really, like, the 80s was an interesting time in LA, and I was living there, and I got kind of pulled into this world, interestingly enough, by two guys from Nigeria. That's how I got introduced to it. I was working with two guys. One guy, Obuyuku Chukwuemeka Okeke, and the other one is Seth Wanagu. So two friends of mine.
Were either of those one of the princes that I receive emails from all the time?
Probably they're getting to you through my yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that so many of those scammers are Nigerian now. But
I'm saying I just received a friend request, and I went and I'm like, I get a bunch of these requests from these young women. And I'm like, come on, what do you go? And then I go look at their profiles, and I'm the one who wants to know everything. So I go in and I check their information, and I just posted up today. I got this request from this person, and it was a woman on the request, but when I went and looked at it, it had female, but then on the name pronunciation that's underneath it, it was a guy's name. And I pointed that out in my post, and I'm just like, these people must think that people, and then I will say that there are a lot of stupid people who will just like look at a friend.
They play off of stupid people.
They do.
There's a lot of stupid people. Yeah.
That is very true.
They wouldn't do that if there wasn't enough dumbasses in the world.
Well, that's why I posted it up and I made it public so that this person, hopefully they would look at that and see, hey, I know what you're onto, and I'm going to blast this out to everybody that's on my friend's feed, because this is ridiculous. And if anybody on Facebook decides, oh, I'm just going to accept that friend request, and they have no clue who this person is, they don't know anything about that person, I will go through a checklist. I want to see who you know, how you know them. I'm going to go into those friends' feeds, and I want to see if you've interacted with them. And if that's not measuring up, then it's just like, boom, delete, see ya, bye.
See ya.
I have no time for that.
No time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. So let me ask you, when you guys were starting to do what you wanted to do, what was the idea that you took and wanted to run with? at
Well,
Icon.
that goes back to those clubs. You know, I had opened, I was with those, they turned me on, they called me a bushman. They like, you know, Drost, you're a bushman. You need to be cultured.
Okay.
One of the things I remember the most is Obu said to me, Drost, you can take the man, or you can take the man, or what is it? You can take the man out of the bush, but you can't take the bush out of the man, and you are a bushman. I took that as a compliment, but anyway, that's how I ended up in this scene. Is I was, you know, into music my whole life. I had been, you know, I've always been a music freak. Everyone I know is a musician or a DJ, and I was thinking, how could I be part of this? So when these guys invited me to this underground scene, and then I actually became part of help promoting it and being part of the whole thing, that really excited me. You know, I'm in my 20s at the time. So then I started a few clubs in San Diego where I lived. Similar thing, but smaller scale. You know, the locations would move, and it was all just about, to your question, was just about creating some of that scene, really cool, you know, whatever was happening in the music scene at the time. Not a commercial kind of a club, just, you know, a word of mouth. I really loved that idea. So I started a thing called Aura in San Diego and Eclipse. And we did that for a few years. And then I get this call from David. And I had booked a few bands there. Like the first band I ever booked was in San Diego, was the Psychedelic Furs.
Oh, nice.
And so then when David called me and said, hey, this club's for sale, do you want to come here? I just happened to just break up in a really important relationship to me. So I was feeling like, oh, this might be a good time to go somewhere. I mean, why else would I go back to Buffalo from San Diego, right? I mean, I love Buffalo, but I'm also a big fan of the beach and the sun. And
sure.
Well, you know, you're a Florida guy. So
oh, yeah.
I've always had that thing with Buffalo. I love it. I love it as my home place, my family, and I go there as much as I can. But really, I was like, why would I come back to Buffalo? And then I thought, well, this is a good time. And it was January.
Oh, man, that's bad.
Actually, when I met Karen, too, within a few days of me coming to Buffalo, I met her on a toboggan hill. Okay. So I came to Buffalo to check it out. I was free to go. My clubs weren't big in the winter. We kind of took some time off. So I said, yeah, I'll go check it out. And when I saw it and I saw what they were doing and what, you know, David was committed to it, I said, yeah, let's do this. But to answer your question, the thing for me was to take some of what I had been part of there and kind of meld it into that. I didn't really want to dramatically change something that seemed to be kind of cool. But what I did want to do that they weren't doing was to mix the live aspect.
Okay.
I wanted to bring, I mean, for me, I've always been a concert fanatic. So that's the simple answer is I saw it as a venue that we could do both. We could have all the cool DJ stuff, the dance music, great scene at the time, you know, going into the early 90s. There was a lot happening and, you know, well, as you know, and industrial and house, and as well as all the, you know, the shift in the rock world was all at the same time. I mean, we were at the right place at the right time. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
In terms of, you know, shifts in the music world. So, and that was happening in real time. And I was thinking, this is a great place. And, you know, downtown Buffalo was nothing. It was not just downtown. The whole club scene in Buffalo had pretty much either gone out to Cheektowaga or.
Right.
So I thought, how cool is this? It's right, you know, just outside of center of downtown. It could be it would be a really clear extension of what I was already involved in the West Coast. So I decided to move back to Buffalo, and I, you know, talked to family, talked to friends, got it together, bought the club, and from there we didn't jump on the live thing right away. A little bit of it's hazy. I'm amazed how much I do remember. When you ask me the bands, I mean, I can remember probably 90% of the bands without having a list, but there's some of that time period is a little bit hazy because, you know, of course, different people have different recollections.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, here's the thing.
I mean, for me, it was just like I made a decision. I'm there, but my brothers often remind me that there was more of a, you know, a concerted effort to support it from the beginning, and. That was the other thing is I had a lot of support from family and, you know, and you and so many other people that were coming, you know, that were the people that were already part of that club were such a like I said, I might have shaped something, or we might have shaped something, but it was already there to be shaped.
Well, here, let me say this first of all, that I understand your modesty about what it was that you did.
Be modest?
Well, I understand that, first of all, the vision that you came into, because a lot of people don't understand what happened at Icon. And I really
it's tough to understand.
No. I mean, I split it into Icon 1.0 and Icon 2.0, just like when I married Linda 1.0 and then I married Linda 2.0.
And they're very different things.
It's very different things, but
they did turn out to be very different things. No question of that.
No, that's the thing. When Jeff and George came in there and opened the original Icon, there was no vision other than the main space right in that first floor area. And then I'm trying to, we must have had the third floor open at that time. But I thought you didn't use the third floor. I can't remember. Like, this is one of those hazy memories. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, is I looked at the space and said, oh my God, they're not fully, using this whole space.
Exactly. Leading to my point. When you guys came in there and purchased the place, prior to you coming in there was no other wall or no other space there for bands to play, because it was one single room. You guys came in there and knocked down that whole wall and broke through to that other warehouse space, built a stage, and now you had a premier spot for bands to come in and play. So, which was crazy and irresponsible, by the way. We took a supporting wall out, but at least we didn't get killed doing it. Couldn't do that today, right? I mean, they were like, we went to the city, like, oh yeah, just take it out and make sure you do this and put the beam up. And it's like, no, that wouldn't happen. And of course, it would not happen today. But just that vision, coming in there, looking at a spot, and this is really like a credit to the development of what happened down there and where you took it from where you found it and where you wanted it to go. A lot of people who came into Icon 1.0 and maybe have come back and they were at Icon 2.0, they may not have understood that. First of all, they probably didn't know somebody else bought the club. But yeah, it wasn't like a big banner out there, new ownership or anything. Right. We just kind of quietly took it over. Yeah. And pretty much. Oh, hold on one second. I don't know who's calling me. Oh, I'm busy. So yeah, they did not even they didn't even think about opening that other side space. So that's where I want to give you a lot of credit for coming in there, understanding what we had there, but then looking for the potential of what it could become. And that's really, I had that, I did have that as experience. Yeah, I mean, I'll take that credit because but it's not just modesty. I'm going to look at what my influences are. I'm going to see, I've learned that through my Mark 3.0 yoga world, where it's you really look at the whole of things, and there's other things that contributed to that. One was a club called Tango in Dallas, which was mind-blowing, and Danceteria in New York, and the church, and there's so, it wasn't called the church, Limelight, but there's so many things that I was fortunate to be able to be in these different places and traveling. And when I first went out to California, I stopped in Dallas to meet Rich Hollister and from Buffalo, and kind of fell into the scene there a little bit. And there was this club, just incredible club called Tango, where there was on one floor there's live blues bands, on the upper floor it was DJ music playing house, and then on the bottom floor it would change all the time. So that was one of the things. Or Danceteria as an example did the same thing in New York. Crazy cool club. I'm amazed when we talk, people go back in history and talk about the club scene, that we don't hear much about that. But I think that was that really influenced. So, I just looked at Buffalo like, this is a place we could do this. It's a cool city. There's people with musical taste that already had the foundation. The space was there. We had to do a lot of work. But the third floor, I mean, the idea that you could just have something chill up there, people kind of do what they want. That's what it turned into, Right. A separate DJ with MKO up there. And, well, you were up at the third floor too, weren't you? Well, the Matic Tribe was up there all the time. Marcos and all those guys. Yeah. And I will say that the combination between KO, Chief, and Nomadic Tribe, Mark, I'm going to tell you right now, Icon was the powerhouse in Buffalo during those years. And you can't deny it. Nobody can deny it. because I mean, what else was going on? You had the Continental, which was struggling. They were going through their renovation at a point in time. We actually had the DJs from the Continental come over to DJ.
Yeah, that helped shape it. The whole Continental going through its shift definitely helped shape it.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, Icon helped in the long run, in a weird way, helped revitalize that scene because people went back to it. You know,
Right.
I mean, the Continental's an institution. That's the place for Buffalo. You know, I mean, that was happening when we went down there, but it was so, I was definitely looking at something. It's not fair to say there was nothing happening downtown Buffalo. You know, I mean, the Continental is such a huge part of Buffalo history, but it was definitely something on a different scale that we wanted to, like when I described the different thing, we wanted to make it more of a mix of things and, you know, accessible to more people and to, although I was into the scene that the Continental represented very much at the time, I've always been, as you know, I have a very broad view or eclectic view of music. I always have, thankfully to my older brother who introduced me to all kinds of things at a young age. And Jonathan was a big part of that, you know, and then he would look at the Icon like, yeah, I mean, he's the one who probably looked at it like, yeah, I helped create this because I helped create that mind.
Right. Well, even here's the thing, like you're saying, and like I say, you're being really humble about it, but I'm just telling you from my point of view, as someone who was there before you came from San Diego to Buffalo, that okay, you had the Continental, great, but along Chippewa Street, and I will say that I'm not a big fan of the overgrowth that happened on Chippewa Street and the demonstrative shoving down your throat of whatever it was that these people were throwing down there. But all of a sudden, every year I would go back up there for Music is Art, and I would just drive past. I would never go to those places down there. Well, one time I did, and it was kind of a mistake. But
yeah, there's not much to do when you go down Chippewa. That's like a whole.
No, there was nothing else along any of those areas. So I have to admit, compounded with the Continental or combining it with the Continental and Icon, there was really nothing happening down there. So it's weird that we probably created a beast down there, because all those people that are down there now, they would have looked at downtown Buffalo like, I'm not going down there. It's too dangerous. There's no blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, there's no question it was the impetus, because, you know, then Mark opened the third room, and across the street was
Atomic and Concrete.
Yeah. Concrete. Yeah, I mean, those things wouldn't have happened without Continental and Icon. That's for sure. I mean, I don't think they would. And then both Marks, you know, going down there and building all this stuff, and and you know, it was still great for a lot of. It has really morphed into something very bizarre, but I think that's true culture wide, not just there. You know, there's I don't know. There's still a few places in this country, certainly around the world, where you can go and there's really cool club scenes. But now of course COVID is changing things dramatically.
True.
Yeah. But just, I mean, I think we impacted the live music scene more than anything else.
There's no doubt about that, and that's why I'll get whatever names of the bands that you remember. And who was it who was booking the bands for us for a while there? I can't remember his name. But we had just like awesome. I mean, in terms of the national acts that came into Buffalo.
Well, I worked with a few people that did bookings, but I ended up doing about 80% of that. Is a little known fact in the Icon. I did about 85% of the booking because, for a lot of reasons, it's something I saw that made sense. I'm the club owner. You know, I saw some other people helping on that front, trying to build their own business. And it just, and then, you know, at that point I started thinking bigger. I started thinking, well, I love music. This could be my life. I could become a promoter. I was influenced by Bill Graham. So,
okay.
I used to go to a lot of Dead shows on the West Coast, and I met him once, and, you know, he was a real inspiration when he talked about how he got in the music scene in the 60s with the Dead and Santana and all this stuff. And, yeah, and then I had met some other people in that world, so that had some influence on it too. I just thought this could be, and I didn't think about that ahead of time. It was just like, yeah, this is cool. But then I think within the first year of being there, I started thinking this could really be something we could build as a live music, you know, as a foundation. Because the other thing we saw is the bands with Stephen cooking and just taking care of the bands is something that almost nobody does at the time in the club business. It's like, here's a hamburger, get out of my face. And so that relates to the booking, because I really wanted to, I had great respect for the artists, for the DJs, for the musicians, still do. And I think that unfortunately is rare in the music world, or was at the time.
It's very rare.
A lot of the bands would be stunned and amazed that I would be sitting there the whole show watching them. Sometimes we'd meet after the show to finish the payment and stuff, and they'd look at me like, you were right there the whole time. I'm like, yeah, I'm a fan. That's why I'm here. So that relates to the booking, because, like Peter Murphy comes, I said, I want to see Peter Murphy, so I'm going to bring him here. A lot of this was, I have to admit, was a little bit selfish, right? I brought the bands that I wanted to see play. MC 900 or MC 900 for Jesus. Yeah.
And we hung out with him.
Henry Rollins doing a spoken word thing. I mean, there's so many cool things.
Thrill Kill Cult. We had them there twice. And I was saying to somebody the other day, they had the full show and then they had the light show. We had both versions. And when they were there, I was lucky enough to interview them for Slack magazine before one of the shows. And I was sitting there with Groovy and Buzz, and we're talking and we're hanging out. And I was telling them, hey, you guys feel like family. And they said the same thing back, because they remembered the first time they came and played at Icon, and they loved the place. They loved the crowd. They loved the staff and how everybody was treating them. So
that's how it was built. People came back because, that's how we built the concert business out of there, because people came back to Buffalo, said, we're not going anywhere else other than where these guys are, because we treat them well. And it wasn't because we were really cool people. It's because we love music and we love the musicians, and we, obviously we're in business, but I mean, that's the way I've always been. My business now is first something else. It has to be a business because you have to make a living, but it's, I try to focus on what I really love. And I was very fortunate to be, my brother called me to be part of that scene, to go back to my home place. I mean, there's another backstory. Harvey and Corky had left town. And Harvey became Harvey on the West Coast with very little people knowing.
I used to work for Harvey and Corky long ago.
And so there was this gap in Buffalo with live music. And so some of these bands that were coming would have played larger venues, but there wasn't a lot of other promoters there doing work at the time. There was always the Trout, for a certain kind of music. Shays was really tough to book. Lionhead's really tough to book. Way too expensive, because that's the next level up for a venue, right? The Icon, once we took out that wall, I mean, summertime, you open up the thing, which really freaked out the neighbors because it was like a cannon of music going into downtown. That's what ended up being the demise, was that we just really freaked out too many people with how much energy, then we were packing out, selling out. Like the Bare Naked Ladies show was just like mob, oversold, That show was interesting because the power went out and they kept playing. They just kept playing.
And everybody in the crowd was singing the song.
Singing the song.
So the song was going on.
This is a cool scene.
They're on stage and they heard the crowd singing the song, so they just kept going on. I remember that show.
And there's Public Image.
Yeah.
Having Johnny in the house.
Oh yeah.
We put him on the third floor, and there was no bathroom there. He goes, where do I go? Where do I take a piss? I said, well, you take one flight down. There's a cool little spot there called the mezzanine, where only we have it cut off to the general population, because that show was mob too. It was just maybe a handful of you, where the DJ booth was, a couple of people hanging around with you, and I think Ken was there that night. So I don't know. So much of this is fuzzy, but I do remember him saying, I'm not going down there. So I gave him a bucket. He said, I'm not pissing in a fucking bucket. I said, good luck. So then he gets on stage and he's talking shit about this while he's like, these people make me piss in a bucket. And
well, Johnny, I
know Johnny.
Pigface
was an interesting show.
Pigface, yes. I was just telling somebody about that the other day, because I'm standing backstage. For some reason, I was backstage, and Nivek was backstage, and he's drinking white wine out of a bottle, straight out of the bottle. And I'm like, dude, why are you drinking wine out of the bottle? And he looked at me, he goes, this is the fastest way to get fucked up. And I was like, okay. And I never tried it, though. I mean, I drank wine later, but I was never like walking around with a full bottle of wine before I'm going on stage to perform in front of a bunch of people. And the dude he downed the whole bottle, like right in front of him.
Wine makes me think of David Byrne, because that's all he wanted to drink. And
yeah.
You know, the other thing with bands is that, you know, and this always when you're a promoter, is that they all have different needs and demands and wants, and it's fascinating that the rider sometimes is just completely crazy.
I was going to ask you about that.
Hey, you're in an 800-person club here. This isn't a large venue, so we're trying to navigate that. And you know, and I had good relationships with the bookers, the brokers, not the brokers. What do you call them? Yeah, the agents.
Agents.
That's a key part of that world is. And I had experience in dealing with, you know, sophisticated people like that have high responsibility and represent, because, you know, these same people that are representing the club artists are representing the people, you know, filling stadiums. So that's how you get the relationship with those people. They're like, well, who's this guy that's treating our bands? You know, they go back and they talk about the show. They do the debrief and they're like, this is a great club. We need to go back there. Right. And then they send them pictures like, that's a great club. It looks like a fucking garage. It's like, But they were like, yeah, but you know, the sound was good. We after a couple of mistakes, we made sure it was top-notch sound. You know, we had some of the best sound people in the business by far. We even had two of them. We had one on, you know, that's the other guy's name is Ken too. There was so many pieces came together. There was, but back to David Byrne. David Byrne was one of my favorite memories, because I'm sitting in my office, which is also on the 3rd floor, which is above the stage. Again, another little known fact, if you hadn't been up there before, you know, people are like, what's behind that door? I can't tell you. So I would sit there during the shows and I could feel the show, basically look through the holes in the floor and looking down at the band. So, but I'm sitting there in the middle of the day doing my calls, booking this was like the height of the booking of, you know, agents were calling me. I got all these bands they want to put in there. A lot of times there was some major bands that wanted to come, but we couldn't afford it. We're just like, well, it only holds this many people. We booked Nirvana 3 times and they kept changing things because they were going through we booked Pearl Jam just as they were growing. They hadn't hit yet. So, but we had something else booked on the same night. So we put them in the scrapyard. Remember the scrapyard? We had taken over the scrapyard briefly. Pearl Jam came. Unfortunately, it's not part of the Icon, you know, history, but they played in front of 25 people at the scrapyard. Wow. just for you know. Same thing with who else is from the Seattle scene that played there? Chris Cornell played there.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then: what were name a band that was the one that got away? A band that you really like honestly wanted to have at Icon, and you just could not get them in for whatever reason.
Well, that one was Nirvana, because I really wanted to see Kurt and company play there, and we had them booked, but it just kept their, like, you know, the record was selling like crazy at that time. And David Byrne was almost one of those when they found out, when they, you know, sometimes like, well, tell me more about the club. He's like, why would I play in a place like that? And the agent was like, these people are cool. You're going to be treated well. The crowd is great. And so I remember that time where I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him teach the band. That's why I remember that, because he would, you know, a lot of these artists that are bigger, they're playing the club tours, they don't bring a band with them. It's too expensive. So he's basically teaching a band for the next few shows some of his songs, and this was an amazing memory to hear him, you know, and they get it, and then they go out and they play a show like they've been playing together for a long time. And so, but that's why we're able to get him, is because we said, well, we can set this up with, you know, you don't have to have your own band with you, and we know you want to play Buffalo, and a lot of times there wasn't other places for him to play at different times, but other ones that got away.
Yeah, that could be a lot of people though, but I mean, a
lot of them. Yeah, I had huge balls. They told me, you got big balls, dude. You're like asking this band to play in this club. I'm like, well, where else are they gonna play? Because they would call you and say, look, I got Cleveland.
Yeah.
I got Boston. I need something in between, right? I got Detroit. Or I got Montreal, and they're driving right, because they always drive through Buffalo. So the agents looked at it like, we got to have Buffalo. And Buffalo had been known as a really good market because Harvey and Corky for years were, you know, really booked some great shows. They were not, you know, too big on the club level.
No.
So that's the other thing, is that we were, you know, not the first, but we certainly are the ones that put the whole club scene on the map in that sense. Like there's First Avenue in Minneapolis, there's 930 Club in Washington, there's places that have been there forever that Buffalo didn't have that. That's the other thing that inspired me. I saw these other clubs. I saw Prince play in First Avenue in Minneapolis. I'm like, this place is amazing. Buffalo needs one of these, or wherever I am.
Right.
Some of those clubs have not. Hopefully they'll come back, but I haven't made it through the whole pandemic thing, which is a tragedy. They've been there for 30, 40, 50 years doing amazing work.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about the pandemic. It's so weird because right before the pandemic started was when I was just starting to re-gear and get back into the notion of getting behind the decks again. And I don't know where it was going to be, but I thought, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do it on a weekly basis or a nightly basis, but I want to come back out and start doing special events. And that's what's difficult for me is right now we're starting to come back out of it. And I actually have located a spot down here in my funky little beach town that has a beautiful room that fits it's a smaller room. It's like maybe 500, 600 comfortably.
It's perfect.
That's what I'm saying. It's really nicely done. I mean, it's not like a hole. It's called the Bamboo Room.
Lake Worth?
If you ever know about the Bamboo Room here in Lake Worth,
Yeah.
or heard about it,
Yeah.
It's that spot. And I've tried to get in touch with the owners.
Really?
Their voicemail is full, and I can't leave a message. So I have to start walking over there like every other couple of days and just see if I run into somebody, because I want to start doing something in that space.
That's a great spot.
It
And
is.
Lake Worth is the best spot in that region to do something.
I will tell you, and I don't tell anybody, but Lake Worth Beach is really like the best kept secret in South Florida, because north of us is West Palm, which I will say I've been up to West Palm. I've gone to Respectables many, many times. That's really the only place I'll go to, and that's the longest running alternative club on the
that's
East
been there
Coast.
Forever.
It's been there. But they're under new ownership now and under new management.
And it's not big enough to do big shows.
No, it's been maybe 3-4 years since I've been up there, but I was up there every weekend when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and when I moved around to these different areas up here in Florida, I was going to Respectable twice a weekend. I actually tried to DJ there one time, and the manager, I went in there, I took him a disc, and the manager was a dick. I have to admit, and I really don't like dealing with dicks, but I gave him my stuff. I wasn't kissing his ass or nothing because I had done this before. And I'm thinking to myself, yo, bro, West Palm compared to Buffalo, size-wise, are you joking me? And you're not saying, yeah, we would love you to come in. Yeah, I was like, I wanted nothing to do with that bullshit. So I'm going to find my people here, and we're going to get this thing going. So
one that comes to my mind that got away was Trent Reznor, was 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, yeah.
Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah, that would have been great too.
We had several things that fit into that early 90s genre that was just, we came close, but it just didn't. I mean, but 9 Inch Nails came really close, close. That would have been like a show remembered forever.
Big Audio Dynamite. When Big Audio Dynamite played in Buffalo at Icon, I'm telling you, that was a show. I mean, I have people like Nando still talk about it. Staff members that work there.
That's the show. I think that's the show. And then we hung out with them out in Eden, which was cool.
I didn't get out to Eden. I don't think I made it out to Eden, but we went up to Toronto and saw them at RPM the next night. And I was just like, this was great. It was perfect. And
RPM is 5 times the size.
Yeah, but still, everybody in Big Audio Dynamite was just like so cool. And it was so great to have had them at Icon.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the coolest shows and one of the best interactions with the band, and certainly one of the biggest artists, to have that certain person in that club
sure
who happened to be one of the icons of music history,
part of the only band that matters is what they say. So I mean, the
only band that matters. We've got a lot of things that are not in that necessarily in that scene. We did all kinds of, we did like little jazz shows. We did a lot of things people don't, we did Tori Amos, which was fucking mind blowing.
Gil Scott Heron,
Michelle Shocked. Michelle Shocked.
808 State, bro.
808 State.
When you had 808 State and you brought 808 State.
Front 242, KMFDM. Yeah, there's so many shows, but there was also, speaking of icons, there was we had bands on the way down in there, which is
Sure.
some of the hardest stuff to deal with, because they spent their whole life playing these big venues, being treated like gods, and now they're still out there trying to perform, and they're playing in clubs, and in clubs that aren't necessarily in alignment with what they play. One example would be Kantner from, well, we had Jefferson Starship there, and it was just like, that was a dream for me, because I grew up on they have somebody from Airplane and Starship in the icon, just to have them there. The same with David Byrne. Like, you're just in the building. I don't need you to play. You're just here.
Right. He could just stand there at the corner of the wall, holding a deck of cards and passing the card out to everybody and going like, "Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming." And that would be the show.
Then there's a lot of it. We had the whole era of the rap shows that was a little tumultuous, but some big stuff at the time.
I was going to ask about that and talk about that, because there has been, people who, there's been so many stories about the demise of Icon and what really caused the demise of Icon. And then I will talk back to them and say, hey, look, there was a show that we had there called the Wu-Tang, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a brawl starts happening in this part of the club, and then I've got to stop the music, and the lights go up, and I'm announcing everyone's got to get out of the building. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, everybody's outside of the building, and then all of a sudden, all that, whatever happened outside of the building. But suburban parents are reading this, and they're like, "Oh, they're telling their kid."
At the time, either the mayor's daughter or like someone who's close to the mayor, I think it was the mayor, was in the club.
Oh,
so if you want to know why there was the demise of the icon,
Tomasello, who was at the time? Tomasello, I think.
What's the other guy's name?
Oh, it was a different. Okay, never mind.
He turned out to be he was an executive in the county too.
It wasn't Jimmy Griffin then, so at least that.
No.
Yeah, he was gone long before
that. There was someone from the government who had an underage daughter in the club, and that was always a point of contention, because at the time you could do underage as long as you didn't serve them, and then it turned into you have to have them separate, and so we try to be good about that, but that's a difficult thing to do. People are packed in some shows we had like the underage on one side and the people on the other, and so
at one point in time there were wristbands or something too that we were handing out to the underage, to the
but Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang plus plus all that type of stuff is definitely one of the things that, we were pretty much told we weren't gonna be able to stay there. That's it. You can point to all kinds of things, but when the right people tell you you're not going to be here next month, then you have to make a decision. We're going to fight you, or we're going to stop you. Or the last few days was quite an interesting time.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember. Trust me, I remember. It was and I was lucky enough to have been there from the first part when the other guys opened it until the last day when you guys owned it and we ended up closing. So I saw the whole arc of everything.
Yeah, you're the perfect guy to be. You should turn this into some really big documentary or something, not just a YouTube thing. You should.
Yeah, well, you never know.
This is definitely a part of the Buffalo music history in a big way. So that would be
that's you know what.
And again, I mean collectively, not from maybe a little bit of humility, but there's so many people that contributed to that whole thing. You're one of them. You're talking about me. You're a big part of the success of that club. Your ability to play to different audiences, your ability to your eclectic taste in music. You wanted to be there anytime you could be there. So you were even there when you were DJing at another club. You were off at I don't know, Network or whatever it was, and you were so you are an example of a huge part of the credit for that collective energy. But there's from my family to the other people that were DJing there to the security alone. A lot of the shit that happens. Without Elmore,
dude.
Or Tony, those people held that together.
Elmore and Tony, and there was a couple other ones there, but I remember Elmore. Anytime I've ever worked anywhere, and Elmore was working the door or working security, I was just like, I could have walked up and been like saying shit to anybody and not had to worry about it, because all I would do is say like, Elmore, come here.
Elmore, come here.
And I mean, and Big Tony,
and nobody would mess with them.
Here's the thing: is both of them were the nicest guys in the world.
Nicest guys, and still are. You still are.
They are, yeah. Until you stepped over that line. I will tell you this: one time I saw Elmore. I was in the bathroom downstairs at the Continental one time. It was years after I'd worked there, and I'm in the men's room or whatever. I'm doing my business, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, that door comes flying open. Boom! And Elmore and this dude are going at it in the men's room while I'm standing there doing what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh shit. What? And I'm trying to hurry up because I'm not joking. I will say that Elmore was the fastest man I've ever seen move. I swear to you, I've never seen somebody move so fast. And
he should be. This isn't just Buffalo folklore. This is like he should be seen as one of the key, not just security, but just the guy that holds it all together. That's operations, and because of his, he's fast. He's super cool. He's mellow, but powerful, strong, but takes no shit. I mean, there was one time that someone who I hope, unless they're the stupidest person alive, was messing with me, didn't know that I was the owner of the club, which a lot of people didn't, and I really enjoyed that. This is, we're here. David was off in the face.
Well, David had the hair, so everybody knew David with his hair.
He wasn't too happy about that. It's like, well, I don't know if I want to be the one taking all. But I'm standing next to the bar talking to somebody, and somebody either lifted this person's wallet or did something, and he turns me around, really kind of drunk, like, "What are you doing, taking my shit?" And you're just like, and then put his hand like here, like he's like, "You're stealing from me," and I'm just, no, you got the wrong guy, man. And I just looked over at Elmore.
Yeah.
Not like, no, like, I'm okay, but just, so he walks over and he just picked the guy up, turned his shirt like this, lifted him.
Yeah.
And one-handed walked through, like weaving through the people, I think Tony, and through the door, and just kind of like threw him across the parking lot.
Exactly.
I was like,
and
that was Elmore.
And that was the greatest thing about him. You didn't have to say anything. All you had to do was look. Because that's how he was. Elmore was the smartest security person that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, he's so much more than security, but definitely.
He used to.
Then Tony, Mr. Cool too, right? Tony was like,
oh yeah. One time
he just laughed at people like, really? You're just gonna go there? He just laughed.
That's all he did. One time there was a bunch of people that were trying to get into Icon, and Elmore started asking these people a bunch of questions, and they were like, it caught him off guard because he's standing there with their ID. And he would start asking these questions, like totally out of the blue, like left field, and like they were so confused.
What color is your mother's hair? Where'd you grow up?
How much gas do you have in the tank of your car right now? And they would just be like, "What are you?" He had these things, and he would just get these people going. And I was just like, he was classic in that respect. I loved it because he always caught them off guard. So,
and that's why, so many of those people, we had our gaps, every club does, but we were pretty serious about, if we're going to have underage or not allow those because I'm not known for my huge respect for, I have a respect for the law, but for things like that, I'm a bit of a risk taker, obviously, but that was something that we didn't really want to mess with. But those guys, they help support that because we'd go back to Elmore. They would just look at the idea and just like, it's like, I don't have to say anything. Like, no, do a better job next time.
He had no problem saying whatever to anybody, and they would stand there. And I remember seeing so many people's reactions when he would confront them or talk to them about something or deny them entry, and they would just be like blown away, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not getting in. And you know
what? This is one of the reasons for the success of the club, because if you're serious about the security of the people in the club and the bands, and you're serious about it being a place of great fun and maybe even a little bit of debauchery if we get up to the third floor, but it's within a context of, this is a safe place to be. I mean, that's also what led to its demise, is because it ceased being a safe place to be. People were bringing in weapons, and it wasn't just in the rap shows. Though we did have that. There were some people that were not music fans that were coming to great trouble. I mean, there was one time I was on the mezzanine, 10 feet from you, sitting at the bar, and I put my hand on the back of a chair to ask I think Mark Corsi
Right.
Rest in peace, Mr. Mark.
Yes.
Mark was a huge part of that club and always will be.
The original.
He put my hand in the back, and then I just felt, and I'm like, what is this? And I loaded gun.
Yeah.
Sitting in the pocket of this jacket.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whose jacket is this?
Well, that's what
are you doing with a loaded gun in a nightclub? Like, what kind of stupid shit? It was this suburban, milky white bread.
Yeah, he wanted to be a gangster.
Kid, child with a gun in his. I'm just like that. I remember that because there was a time when a shift happened where we had to start patting everybody down. I mean, pre that, it was really like a shift in innocence, I think. I mean, we weren't innocent, like we were talking about the security and stuff, but I mean, we had to do metal detectors at every show at one point because there was a few instances where people were bringing in weapons. So it was like, this is just crazy.
I remember, and I'm trying to think of what show it was, but somehow I got away from the DJ booth there and got down into the mix of something that was happening on the floor, and a scuffle started, which I'm not a big guy. You know me. I'm a pretty, I call myself, I have a swimmer's body is how I tell people.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it. I'm a swimmer.
Well, here I am. And then all of a sudden, somehow I got punched in the head, and it was right in the side of my head. And I actually had an earring. I was sporting an earring in those days. I remember getting back up into the booth. I put my headphones on, and I'm like, man, it feels really weird. I don't know what's going on. And I took my headphones off, and I went to feel my ear. And all of a sudden I realized that the post that I had on the earring was bent like an L shape. So whoever had punched me so hard that it bent the post on the earring that I had and made it into an L. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is not good. And I never wore an earring ever since.
I have to say, on the issue of being punched, I have never been punched so much in my life.
Really?
Because there wasn't a lot. Well, I haven't been punched a lot, but there were multiple occasions where I'm just kind of, they asked me to come over to help. That was the other thing that was great about all the security. They would involve, sometimes it'd be just like, but other times it'd be like, well, let's talk about this. And there was a few times that punches were thrown. Another time where I was out, I'm sad to say, I don't know, it's kind of disrespectful, but there's a few people, I'm not remembering their names, that were really good on the security team. But one guy was out there, and this 2 guys on him, just beating on him. Right. So I'm like, I can't just stand here. So I'm trying to be like, hey man, that's not cool. These guys are all the guy, and those 2 guys are way bigger than me.
Right.
I'm not a small guy, but I'm also not a fighter.
Yeah. So, nobody wants to fight.
But that was one time I got a little, and actually it was our security that hit me. Because I'm like, hey guys, and he's
that might have been a security dude who hit me in the ear then. Who knows? I do remember one time I got down because there was a friend of mine was down there, and then these 2 guys were harassing her, and I think it might have been a hip hop. I don't even know. It wasn't even a hip hop show, but there's 2 guys in there, and I walked down there, and I don't even know where the bouncers were at the time, but for some reason I just decided I'm going to be just like the guy, and I started talking to them, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this dude could have pulled the knife out and just like stabbed me like 10 times and been out of here.
It's been gone. Yeah.
There was a situation where and I never was trying to be intimidating. I was just like trying to tell people, hey, look, don't do that here. This is not the place for that. Go outside.
That's the thing. That's the thing that at the hip hop shows that was concerning is there were no question there were more weapons. No question about that.
Oh yeah.
There was. And we were catching them at the door, but that's the other thing is somehow people would be getting. I'm just like, in what world do you want to have a weapon inside of a packed place?
Exactly.
Like I just don't get that unless you're really seriously, wanting to do damage. Like this one guy's, you need to leave now. It's like, why would you throw me out? It's like, can I just put it in the car? It's like, what person would have a loaded weapon in a club? That's just, even if you're not meeting, that's just beyond irresponsible.
It's insane. It's insane.
Like, that's just, it's just insane. I don't want this to dominate a conversation about such a great place, but it is often really good things get messed up by people that are, you look at the trajectory of any club that doesn't last for years and years and years. And maybe one of the reasons the Continental did last for so long is that there's an ability to, keep, as it evolves, to keep some of that stuff in check. I mean, Icon was definitely more of like, a fast rising,
Right.
Really amazing. I mean, there were many things about the trajectory that were kind of obvious in hindsight that it wasn't going to be a long-lasting thing. It was more like, the mercurial relationship that was, going to do amazing things for you and then, and then burn out. But there were some elements of that. I've certainly heard when people talking about the history of it, that's their perspective, is like, well, you were going for it. You were going for it on every level, and you were trying to be inclusive, and you were mixing. That's the other thing. You were mixing crowds that hadn't been mixed before. Not in that
Right.
town.
It's
We were mixing. What's that?
it's unfortunate that the mixture was not cohesive, because I've been to
Right,
places in cities where you've had a hip hop crowd right next to a punk rock crowd, right? On the next, and I'm just like, I've seen it happen so many times. But the reality of the time in Buffalo is we were going through a very challenging time there too, because first of all, downtown Buffalo was a wasteland. It was deserted basically in terms of nightlife. So
or people of any kind at night. It was a daytime thing.
Yeah. I mean, after 5 o'clock, once Jimmy Griffin put that subway up on Main Street, that killed the downtown scene. And so it took, and I don't even know if they've ever recovered from that. At least I know they're trying, but
no, that's the weird thing about Chippewas. You have this area where but downtown is not. I mean, I know there's people living there, and people living there would probably argue this, but it's still a shell of what it was when it hasn't really. And it's not just Buffalo. So many cities have struggled to revitalize their downtown, but many have. There's Baltimore's an example. Cleveland. There's places that have the old school Rust Belt cities that have revitalized the downtown. And all those forces definitely affected. And I made choices knowing that there was going to be potential. It's not just mixing crowds. It's anytime you mix any type of energy. It's
right.
It's more like over a long-term thing. Also, any club has a trajectory, right? Like, when I took over the Icon, it was like super hip and cool. Like you were if you were there, you were part of the scene. You were what we would call an influencer.
Sure.
Over that time, that changes as anything gets popular. That changes as soon as you start adding. You put Jefferson Airplane and and KMFDM in the same place, some shit's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, not necessarily bad stuff, but I mean, that's very much how I saw it is bring people together, bring music together. I was so into so many different things. There was a couple really good, shows on the hip hop side of things that completely influenced me in a way that I didn't know would happen. It was really helped me turn on to a whole different genre of music.
Right.
Who's the guy that's... He's the rapper slash. I'm forgetting. There's a reggae mixed with hip hop is called what? Reggaeton.
Reggaeton.
Is it reggaeton? Who's the big guy in the reggaeton world?
Oh well, back in those days we had reggae artists. Buju Banton came in. You had him in there.
Buju Banton.
That was a controversial show.
Yeah, that was a wild night. That was a wild night.
That was. I learned about Buju from my buddy from KO. He's the one who introduced me to a lot of his music. And then I know that he was like ecstatic when you had decided to book Buju Banton down there. But
KO is big influence in the whole scene there, because I had been friends with him since, years before that. And definitely one of my dearest friends. And when he speaks to me, I listen, and he didn't speak much about it, but he would. He'd say, hey, why don't you bring this or bring that? Or, because I had a varying taste in music, but not super, he helped, I always surround myself with people like you and him and other people that have their own eclectic taste, because I find that fascinating. I love to learn about music from other people. And you taught me so much in the dance scene. So I always come up there like, what the hell is this that you're playing? Where'd you get this? Like, this is cool.
Well, that's the same with KO. KO and I, because I was more of the club style, and KO was just starting out and DJing. And I remember going over to his place, and we would go through sessions, and I remember he was trying to do some mixing before, and it was a train wreck. And I mean, he will tell you that too. And I mean, the leaps and bounds that KO went through from when I first met him as he was DJing to where he made
it. At first, it was just like you're there because we know we have cool taste in music, but you had no idea how to DJ. But then you learned how to DJ.
And he's the one who taught me so much about the reggae because he was so into the reggae. And we would go over to his place off of I think it was St. John's near the concert hall there, Kleinhans. And
we'd also go. There was at the time there was a club on Hurdle called Rude Boys.
Rude Boys. Well, Joe Casio used to work. He used to DJ at Rude Boys. First time, dude.
Actually, that predates it. I don't think that was around at the same time. I might be wrong, but I think Rude Boys was gone by then. But.
Oh well, no. The first time I went to Rude Boys, I think it might have been, and it was in the '80s.
It was in the '80s, yeah, mid '80s.
Me and my buddies, we got super high, and we roll.
Which you have to do if you go to a reggae place.
Well, we roll up to this place on Hurdle Avenue, and the guy's like, "Yeah, we're going to this club right now," and I'm like, "We're walking up." I was like, "Dude, this is somebody's house," and that's what Rude Boys was. It was built in an old house right on that corner.
Somebody's living room. Yep.
We get in there, and I'm not joking, man. It was packed wall to wall. And I don't know if Joe was DJing that night, but it was the best time. The nicest people, had the best music going on in there. And I was just like, yeah, it's too bad that place did not last for longer than it did because it was a quality spot. It was a quality spot.
Well, there's been some good stuff on Hurdle, on Elmwood. It's just downtown was the thing to have something. Of course, many people would tell you now downtown's got, everything, but it's different. No question. The other bands that have played there, God, there's so many. I hope I can come up with a full list. I did have a full list. I've just been trying to look for it, but
well, that's okay. I mean, at some point in time, we'll get it. Now, I'll add it on to the post or whatever here. When I
know Hot Tuna was there. Yorma was there. Almost had Neil Young.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, back when there was just a little time period where he hadn't toured and he's a massive artist, but there was a time that he was doing some solo stuff and the numbers didn't work in one of the theaters and we were pretty close. It was just so incredible. The tickets would have had to be so expensive and then actually ended up playing in Shays. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. It was really good. Yeah.
Well, the shows that you threw over at the Armory as well, the Connecticut Street Armory. I remember coming over there for live when they played.
That was so good.
That was amazing.
I got so much shit for that band. People are like, what is that? They're this, they're that. A lot of the cool music people. I'm like, you don't get it. Live was an amazing band.
They performed well. I mean,
they were underappreciated. What's that?
I was blown away. When
Throwing Copper was the record. That's like one of the best records of that decade. It's crazy good. Yeah. That's one of those bands where I turn people on to back then. And, you love them or you hate them. You're like, who is that? They're like a so-and-so ripoff. Other people would be mesmerized. Like that's the other thing that happens. The other band that happens with today is Cage the Elephant, which I absolutely love.
Okay.
I love Cage the Elephant, but there's, friends are like, why would you listen to that? What is that? It sounds like, 3 other bands. I don't know. I love it all. The club helped me too. And then as the club was closing, one of the things why it wasn't necessarily so tragic is we were already doing shows outside the club in other places, and we started work at Darien Lake. We started to do shows in a couple shows in Shays and Kleinhans, UB. King Crimson, UB.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some other amazing shows that we did. UB, what is it called? The something of the arts. It's like a 1700 seater. Beautiful theater there.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But even you had we had Jesus and Mary Chain.
Oh.
They were over at.
That was downtown. We did that ECC downtown.
Oh, that's where it was. Okay,
with Mazzy Star. That was
a great. I remember showing. Oh yeah, that was
Jesus and Mary Chain was amazing.
You had you booked a show over at the theater over near Grant Street. It was Peter Murphy and Jewel opened up, and Jewel she was still living in her van at that time.
Living in the van, yep.
And I do remember I was standing around there, and Peter Murphy, he heard her. He was watching her perform, and he was just totally blown away and totally impressed by it. Basically, that's what he was dropping his jaw at what he was watching on stage before he was going on stage.
Yeah, I had a couple shows with Jewel. She's an incredible.
Yeah,
I would have expected her. She'd go on to do a lot more than she did. I mean, she's a pretty major star, but she's incredibly talented. Her voice
here's what I'm getting at is nobody knew about her, and you booked her to open for Peter Murphy, and I mean, it's just like, yeah.
Well, that's what happened with the Hip. I mean, we brought Hip. The Hip was tragically Hip was bleeding into the Buffalo market because they're so huge in Canada. But
right,
when I originally talked to their agent, they had done some stuff, but same thing happened with Bare Naked Ladies. I saw a thing on MTV at one point. They were like, the interviewer said, well, how did you break in the United States? And they said, well, we played in Buffalo at this club, and and it was so cool. And then, people were talking about it, and then we booked other shows, and we started doing that with the Hip. We did like a I-90 tour with the Hip in Syracuse and Rochester. The plan was, hey, they're big in Buffalo, but let's start moving into the U.S. And we booked them down in North Carolina because for a little while we had a connection with a club in Raleigh.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Hip was
an
amazing band to work with.
Let me expand on that. Because I just posted, and I somehow ran across it on YouTube. I'm a big YouTube fan, where I find a lot of stuff on YouTube. I'd rather watch YouTube than watch television, and came across footage from the Canadian Invasion out at Griffith Sculpture Park, and I was trying to tell people
that was right after this club. That was the season that the club closed. That was in '94.
Yeah, that's right. But I will say that, first of all, so many people came out to that show. I received so many comments on the post, because I posted it up on the CFNY page as well on Facebook. And there were so many people who were like, oh my gosh, I was there, and I'm so great. Thank you for posting this up there. I'm whoever shot the footage, I'm thankful that they were there shooting the footage, because it's a part 1 and a part 2 on YouTube. If you ever get a chance, go look it up. But I was trying to explain to people like, oh yeah, the night before it was raining cats and dogs, and they were trying to get the beer truck up there, and it got stuck halfway up the trail, and they had
tipped over.
Had to get a crane to come in here to get the whole beer truck righted in order for people, they don't know what you went through, what everybody went through to get that show to come off and pull it off successfully.
You want to talk about close calls? We came close to doing massive shows there. I brought Ron Delsner out there. Ron Delsner was, the biggest promoter in New York City. And he came here because the agents are like, you need to go meet this guy.
Okay.
You got to see what he's doing. And he's like, why would I want to see like a piss pot, competitor in Buffalo doing club shows? He said, no, really, you need to. And he's got this cool. So he comes out in like March. The only time I got. So we go out to Sculpture Park to show him the property.
Right.
He's like, I'm not booking shows. I said, look, this is an undeveloped site, but they have a good sized stage that you could, we could do shows with. I mean, it's difficult with parking and everything, but I said, this place is an institution. It could be, and at the time, Larry and the family here, Griffith's family, was open to doing, first they're like, who is this? I was their friend. They're like, who's this guy that wants to bring shows? Because they had always been doing shows, but then we did the Canadian Invasion. They're like, holy shit, that's a show.
Oh yeah.
Half the family's like, no more of that. The other one's like, yeah, this is cool. Simon was a big booster. Simon Griffiths, good, very good friend. Another guy we've lost in the last. Well, he's been gone a decade or so, but.
Yeah.
Amazing people that have all contributed.
I heard about the accident down at Zor.
Yeah, at Zor, of all places, because he's like a big hiker, but this Ron Delsner thing was amazing. He came out First of all, I didn't know how far out of the town, out of city it was. We're driving and driving. He's like, where the fuck is this place? It's like, we're way out there, you know. And then I looked at him. I said, you guys don't have boots? They're like wearing their, you know, city shoes and dressed in $1,000 suits. And I'm like, we're going to a pretty remote place. Let's stop at Walmart. He's like, Walmart? What the fuck are you talking about? To get him some like rubber boots to put over. So we stopped there in Springville.
Oh yeah.
Got these New Yorkers again,
Yeah.
like dressed in, you know, wealthy New York, fast-paced, you know, shit talking, walking through Walmart, picked up the boots, got to the line where people are standing in line, and like, I'm not waiting for this. Takes out like $50, puts it on the thing, and walks through.
Oh.
Like, who doesn't wait in line to pay for these? He's like, no, I'm not waiting. He's like, I can't even spend another minute in this store. So we get out, get to the site. Walk up through a muddy hill. You know how far it is?
Oh yeah,
you know,
I remember.
It's a half-hour
yeah.
walk. We get up there. He goes, "Awesome place, great stage, but how the fuck you gonna do a show here? Like, are you crazy?" I said, "Well, I told you, it's remote. It's this, is that. But you know, we've had shows here. People love it. The community loves it, and." He never wanted to end up doing a show there, but he cursed me for bringing him there. He's like, "Why you trudging me up this hill to do?" But we did a bunch of shows there, really good shows there.
I remember. I mean, I will say that Griff
10,000 Maniacs was a great show.
Who's that in the background there?
Hey, Robbie, Indy, you want to say hi to Andre?
Oh,
hey, Robbie, come on over.
I've
and say hi to
seen
my
photographs.
Friend. Robbie,
Hello.
No.
That's okay. They're shy.
That's Indira. Can you wave, Indira? Indy, come here for a second.
Oh my gosh.
This is my friend Andre.
Hello.
But I was been friends with him forever and ever. He was a big part of the nightclub in Buffalo called the Icon, and we're talking about that. I just want to introduce you. Cool.
Hello. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful family you have, Mark. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. She's
wow.
10. She
how
looks
old
a
are
little
you?
bit like me, right? She's 10.
10. Okay.
Yeah. She's gonna be 11.
Well, no, I can see resemblances from both you and your wife.
Yeah.
Did he meet Robbie too?
No, not yet. Hey, Rob, you want to come over and say hi?
No.
Come on. Anyway, I just wanted to say hi
Okay.
because this is one of my friends you've never met.
Well, you never know when we'll meet. You never know.
We'll see you maybe in Buffalo. He lives in Florida now, but he's originally from Buffalo.
I go to Buffalo for Music is Art, and I've heard from the Music is Art committee that they are actually going to go ahead with a live Music is Art this September.
Really?
So I'm going to book my flight, and if they change it at the last minute, I don't care because I just want to be in Buffalo for a weekend because I got to get my wings, got to get my load hoagie, got to get my super bitey. You know what I'm saying? I got to get all my good Buffalo food, stuff myself, and then come back to Florida because there's no wings down here that are good. No pizza. I mean,
No.
yeah.
I don't know how they don't do that, but yeah. Well, we'll probably see you there. I think we're going to be there around then.
All right, perfect.
See.
Yeah, it's going to be on September 11th this year.
Say hi.
Nice
Hey,
meeting
Robbie,
you.
come on, say hi.
I'll meet Robbie another time.
We'll meet Robbie.
I've seen photographs and I'm just like so impressed. I would, that's one thing I missed out on having was a family. I always wanted.
Hey, you're a dude, so it's never too late.
Yeah, well, 57 years old. I'm really not interested in starting a family right now. And, it's just yeah.
I started at 47, and Dira I had at 47.
Okay, well then maybe I'll find like a 43-year-old woman, and because 57.
No, the best do is to find someone that already has somewhere between a 6 and a 10-year-old, and you still get the child experience, but you don't have to,
Well, okay, I don't want to go into details, but I did that in my second marriage. They were 9 and 11. They were 9 and 11, and I will say that I had never had stepdaughters before, but two of the most intelligent, funny, athletically talented. I can't say enough good things about my.
So you've had the experience of being a dad. There you go. You've had it.
And it was a great experience. I will say it was a
You
great.
probably
experience.
missed them more than her, right? Yeah, a lot more. Yeah, I miss the kids.
Well, I mean, my ex, we don't even talk, but my one stepdaughter, she's on my Facebook feed, so I get to see what she's doing now. The older one, Bailey, and it's great to see her getting into nursing and yeah, it's seeing her develop into this young woman. It's amazing from when I met her when she was 11 years old, and so that's the good thing.
That's the most incredible thing, is to just watch different, because it's happened to multiple generations now. You see them as kids and growing up, and you know, I look at my nieces and nephews that I've had as babies, and now they're in their 30s, and you know, other people that it's just, that's the most interesting thing to me about getting a little older, is that you see all these other people going dramatically from just babies to and it keeps happening. I guess the longer you live, the more you see it, you know, like
what
grandkids, great grandkids.
What would you say was one thing that you wanted to do at Icon that you just never did, or you just ran out of time, or we didn't have enough money, or what was one change that you
I really at some point, one of the goals was to generate enough capital to completely redo the space. You know, at one point I was thinking, because we achieved a certain level of success and, you know, an interest, and then the idea that the bookings would continue, which it did after the closing. That was something that didn't happen. You know, we knew the building was was falling apart. The landlord wouldn't do anything. You know, I'm like, come on, we've been here for years. You know, you got a good leash. They had some issues because of, you know, the attention brought to the building. Their business is next door, but you know, it was the one time I did the firework in the parking lot that kind of pissed them off. But we really wanted to. I went to them and said, hey, would you think of selling this, or allowing us to expand it, or to close down for a while and do a remodel? And so that's something we thought about, because between what was going on in the club / dance scene and the live music world, there was a huge amount of potential there. You know, if it went on a different trajectory and wasn't such a, then that could be a club that's still around today. You know, I mean,
that's the thing, is a lot of people don't understand that the capacity of Icon was pretty much equal to what was going on at the Trouts, in terms of the bodies that you had in the room. So that put Icon on the map in terms of who could be coming potentially to downtown Buffalo that had never been there before and never played another venue. So that was a great thing. How was your interaction with other club owners when you came in and started meeting these other people that were involved in the scene, and may have come over, or you may have been to their places and they found out who you were? How was that interaction?
I think, in my recollection, I think it was all good. I can't think of any case where I wasn't welcomed, or where it wasn't, like I said, I was always kind of low key about my role there. A lot of people looked at it as the Drost family. There was certainly help with but it was, unquestionably my primary, I was the primary responsible party. There was certainly a lot of help with family and friends. And
sure. Whenever Drost was mentioned, there was always a plural. Because
it was always plural, yeah. Still to this day, David,
the Drost. Jonathan, David, Matthew. I mean, it's like, when's it going to stop?
Every one of them. Matthew.
How many more of them are coming out of the woodwork?
Matthew contributed to this club. Stephen did. David, obviously, David's more of the face of the club than me. Jonathan. Still to this day, there's people that don't know that there was another Drost involved. And then others I see on the street on Elmwood at least once every summer I'm there. Someone goes, "You're the guy from the Icon." And I'm just like, holy shit, that's 25 years ago. What are you talking about? 26 years ago. That's almost 30 years ago. And you're just like, yeah, you're the guy. And they got stories. And, I got in there. That's the thing about the underage thing. I hear all the time, like, I was there when I was 16. I'm like, don't tell me that.
Yeah, we don't want to know.
Well, it's because, the thing that I get thanked for the most is that we did the underage shows. Like they say, I see on Facebook, you can't understand how you saved my life, or how you created this thing for my life, because you turned me on to this band. This one kid was like, I was in there, I was 14 and I was watching KMFDM, and it was like the best experience of my life. And and one time was what's another one we came close to that It's just something passed through my memory and then it left.
Well, I had friends of mine when I was working at the Jam Club, and Meredith, I'm sure, but Heather, they were like 16, 17 at the time and dancing in the Niagara Ballet. And they would come to the Jam Club, and I'm just like, I found out the ages of them, and I'm just like, well, I don't care how old they are. They're out there, they're dancing, they're having a good time.
They're dancing.
And they would come after their performances at the Niagara Ballet. So they would have the hair all done up and everything, but they would get out there and be dancing the house music with everybody else and having the greatest time. But I didn't care about their ages, and they were not getting into trouble like a lot of those other people might get into trouble. And they had enough friends around them, enough people. And, you know, if I'm watching you, if I see you and I know you, and I see you getting into trouble, there's going to be no trouble because I'm going to be right next to you in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If I know who you are.
Exactly.
You have had so much yourself. You've had so many different, 8, 10, 12 clubs that you were a key part of in that era. I mean, it's interesting for you because Icon's just one part of that, you know, from the Jam to Rage to Network to
I'm
Icon,
lucky. I'm very lucky. I will say that
you're a legend, Dre. You're a legend.
No, I wouldn't say I'm a legend, but there's a lot of DJs in Buffalo who did not like me for the longest time. First of all, because I got that job at Network, and a lot of them wanted to work for Jim Kelly because that place was freaking huge. You know, you got 2,000 people in there on a Thursday night, and we were doing live to air. Yeah, there's a lot of jobs.
There was some fun nights at Network. That's one of the few clubs that I would actually go to because, you know, you were there and other things were happening there, and they were trying to do all kinds of things. He was throwing money at all kinds of things. But there was, all those clubs, back to the interactions, you know, that's one of my fondest memories of the whole, you know, that era is how cool everybody was. I don't think I had deep relationships with any of the other club owners, but to this day, you know, so many of those people are just cool people. It's such a cool scene. It's such a cool city. You know, I look at things like on Allen Street that's been there forever, Nietzsche's.
Oh yeah.
And how, you know, that talk about an enduring place with someone who really, you know, is behind it.
He stuck it out through a lot, and especially in that area, to be booking live bands in Allentown, where there was no other place in Allentown.
I really didn't even know him. I had met him once, and then we ended up living on the same street. I would pass by his house every day, and then I actually got to know him a little bit. I was like, I've met you before, which is amazing because of all those years. And this was years later when, that's where Indira was born on the same street. She was born on Lancaster Street. That's
very nice. Well, when I go to Buffalo, I have to stop over at the Old Pink, of course. Yep. And I will go to Nietzsche's. I ended up at Nietzsche's when I went to St. Patrick's Day parade up there one year, and my buddy shows up in front of my hotel with a 12-pack of Labatt Blue and a bottle of Jameson, and we started our day for the St. Patrick's Day in front of that hotel while the parade's going down. And, you know, we're drinking. We went on and we started at 11 a.m. and I think I got back to my hotel at like 3 a.m. And we went everywhere down in that area. But one place I will not go ever again to is a Brick Bar because I just don't like Brick Bar. As I'm standing there walking up,
I'm the same way. I think it's just an energy thing.
It is an energy thing because I'm at the bar, my buddy's standing next to me, and we're waiting for beers, and a woman bumps up next to me, and I turn around and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then her boyfriend comes up and wants to start with me. And I'm thinking, dude.
Oh, that's the Brick Bar. That's the Brick Bar.
Joking?
If the Pink that happened, it'd be like, oh, man, cool. No problem.
Well, the Pink, I've never had a problem at the Pink. Never had a problem at the Pink. And, of course.
Hey, you know, the Buffalo scene would be nothing without Mark Supples. I mean, there's so much he's done in that world.
You're very right. Mark was...
his taste and his vision and the different places. And I know there's other people involved in his world, obviously, with his, you know, family. But I mean, Mark is... I mean, I have to say, I don't know much of what's going on now there. I'm so removed from what it's happening in Buffalo. But I imagine that, you know, he's always got some... I imagine Mothers is still there. And
Mothers is still there. I lived under Mark and Amy for a while.
Oh, yeah?
They had an apartment.
Is that the one on Richmond?
Richmond? What? No, not Richmond. Richmond. What street is Richmond? No.
Richmond runs parallel to Elmwood, but it's the next major... Yeah. They lived on Richmond for a while.
Yeah. They had an apartment, and that was when I was with Shauna, and we rented an apartment on that first floor.
There's an icon person, Shauna.
Yeah, and so Mark and Amy lived above us, and it was great because Mark was just one of the first of all, one of the best landlords I've ever had. One of the just a great guy.
It's another example of someone I don't know that well, but any interaction has been like super cool. And that's
Dude, he's one of the funniest people. He is one of the funniest people. When you start talking to him, he starts making these cracks, and you don't even realize it sometimes. It's just like, wait a minute, did I just hear what I thought I heard? He's a funny guy.
You know, there's an enduring him, Frank, you know, these people that have been there forever that are, it's just amazing.
Well, I remember they had tried the new Pink up on Main Street, and that was really, it kind of, they tried for a while.
Interesting place.
I DJ'd a couple parties there, me, Gordon, some other DJs. And first of all, it was a massive space.
Gordon, yes.
that space was huge.
Yes,
and,
huge space.
It's unfortunate that
was his thing. It's like, I need something big because I have all these other small, you know, I need a big ass club. And
well, here's what I thought was the weird thing about it was that there were so many people, and this was a weird kind of a thing between Buff State people and UB people.
Yeah, that club was an example of mixing crowds that didn't actually mix so well.
It did not work because there was a huge UB crowd there, and the UB crowd and the Buff State crowd just did not seem to blend well.
It wasn't just the time. I think just like going back to the Icon early days, that it was. I learned a lot from that. I mean, you're trying to bring in suburban kids. You're trying to bring in West Side adults. You're trying to bring in East Side different culture. You're trying to bring in, you know, and I mean, consciously doing that. Hey, I want to put this here, and that doesn't always work out well. You know, in a perfect world, you're like, hey, everybody's together, we're chill, we're cool. But it normally takes, I think, a little more time for something like that.
It takes a long time.
You know, I'm not a person that's very patient. I was like, no, let's do it now. Wu-Tang tonight, you know, David Byrne tomorrow. You know, Digital Underground.
Man, I gotta say, when I get that list, I know I'm gonna go through this list because my memory is hazy on a lot of the shows there, but yeah, I do know that you were very instrumental in helping that development and bringing a lot of the national acts that even would think about coming to Buffalo as they're passing from Rochester to Toronto or whatever. Oh yeah, well let's play in Buffalo. Yeah, where else were they going to play? Nowhere. Well,
but they had to know that it was there. So that the work that I did is I did a lot of work to let the agents know that. I mean, I had a lot of people hang up on me like, who? Where are you from? Yeah. Like a club in Buffalo I haven't heard of? Fuck you. You know, it's like, but it only takes, in my experience, it only took a few good interactions. You know, some were just like, hey, I need a place. Right. I don't care how much it is. It's a $500 guarantee, you know, and that's how we booked Hootie and the Blowfish.
Right.
You know, it was just like, I need a place. And I said, well, nobody that comes to my club knows who the hell Hootie and the Blowfish is. But, you know, it worked.
Yeah.
There was a lot of shows that, and once you're known as the person that'll book pretty much anything, even if the Trout is like, who is this guy? Why are you booking stuff that we would do? You know, and then some of the clubs that were booking just the R&B or the, you know, the hip hop artists would be like, you know, I'm sure there was plenty behind the scenes. Who the hell does he think he is? You know, why are you doing this kind of a thing? But
well, bro, I'm gonna tell you one time you booked Big Sugar and they were playing there. Let me tell you this. That was the loudest show I've ever in terms of the shows at Icon. I mean, I've been through Kill Call, all those other bands, but Big Sugar. I'm standing at the bar and I was ordering a drink and they started playing. I was like, I gotta go outside.
There's been a few shows like that were so obscenely loud. I'm just like, how is this? Because it's this. You know, and you have the side, of course. That's what I loved about it. You could be chill on the one side, but if you were serious about, you were in the
main spot.
You were in the main spot. But it was so cool to be able to be sitting. Almost never were there people by the wall and the dancer. We could see the stage perfectly.
Yeah.
But you're out of the madness. So any show that wasn't fully sold out, you know, like Bare Naked Ladies, forget it. It was just packed.
It was always packed. They were always packed.
but there's
Any
Peter Murphy. Peter Murphy was oversold.
Our Lady Peace, when you had Our Lady,
Our Lady,
it was jam packed. I had never heard of them before, and then
so many, Our Lady Peace. So many of those Canadian bands that I worked with in the Invasion all played the club. You know, they played the club first. So
you really gave an opportunity to a lot of those Canadians to break into the Buffalo market, break into exposure, even get into from Buffalo to Rochester or Syracuse, because you know, you play Buffalo, then you can play Rochester or Syracuse. But if you don't play Buffalo,
that's definitely our greatest impact. If you were to look at it from a historical perspective, I think the greatest impact was bringing this amazing, you know, decade of Canadian music that was happening. I mean, Canada's always had a huge influence on the broader North American music scene, and always kind of in an understated way. But that, you know, late 80s to late 90s was just a boom for that, you know, for so many different genres of bands. And so I would say that's no question one of our greatest impacts, is that we're bringing them there, or to the, you know, trying to book other cities, or into the Canadian Invasion. A lot of them got exposure that, I mean, Bare Naked Ladies are just one of them.
Right.
The Hip, you know, the Hip was huge, but they were really struggling to get anything going in the U.S. outside of Buffalo.
So I'm sure that there's a lot of people who would want to know if you, I know you're into the yoga business now. Would you ever consider getting back into music or promoting or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that I would like to do that someday. It was a really difficult exit for me. The whole, you know, it all came crashing down with Eden Fest because I had overextended myself and, you know, and not put myself or other people in a good place. So that's certainly burned plenty of bridges there. And that's an example of, you know, I'm not such a patient person. I'm a risk taker. So I'm a vision person, which is why those types of things can happen. But I was warned by all kinds of people, some aforementioned people, big people in the industry, that said, this isn't going to happen without pushback. This is going to be disastrous because you're too young and too inexperienced to go. You know, you're basically going into the market that Edgar Bronfman and Seagram's was controlling with. So that whole story is a whole other separate story we could talk about. That, you know, there's no way.
We won't talk about that story, but I will say that Eden Fest for me, and that was at the time when my first wife Linda, we were dating at the time, and we came up there. I don't even know if you know the story of us when we were coming up there, how we almost died.
I think you told me.
Yeah, we're driving down the road, and she goes, I gotta, pee. So I'm trying to catch up with my friends and let them know, because we didn't have, I don't even know why we didn't call them on their phones, but we had to roll down the window and tell them we're pulling over the next exit. And all of a sudden the next exit came up out of nowhere, and I tried to pull off on this exit, and we were going way too fast, bro. And we went down on that embankment, and Joe Casio and KO and whoever was with us there, they thought we were dead because they saw the van disappear, and then all of a sudden a bunch of grass and smoke and everything, and they thought we were dead. And I don't know how, I can't even explain how we survived and managed to not to, So that's why Eden Fest for me was just like a rebirth. It was just like, we are going to have the best fucking time. And we did. And I was telling the story about we're backstage, and we're walking around, and Linda didn't even know like who a lot of these bands were. So as we're backstage and I'm pointing people out, and I was like, oh yeah.
Who's this Bush thing? Is that
There's
like a
Perry
politician?
Farrell there. Perry Farrell. And Linda had no clue who she was or who he was. Oh. And Tim, my old roommate Tim, who would bartend for us,
I know Tim.
He was really a big fan. And he was standing there to take a picture, and Linda just like bumbled her way into the photo, and Tim got knocked out of the photo, and I felt so bad for that. And I need to find that photograph because it's really funny to see that.
Perry Farrell.
But we met Robert Smith. We met him backstage, and we were just like
Perry's one of my big influences too, because his, the whole
from the West Coast,
when I first met the guys from that started Coachella years before, I met him at a music conference in Europe, and then again in France, and then again at South by Southwest, and I met these guys, and I've been very fortunate to go. This all kind of goes to your question about wanting to be in the music business, and I mean, I really between the end of the Icon was like first phase, and then the end of the Eden Fest was a huge like explosion to a really good thing. And you often, that's what happens when you push things too far or too fast. But my vision has always been shaped by some of these people I've met and had conversations with: Bill Graham, Perry Farrell, Paul from that. Coachella has now become the biggest event on the planet, and we ended up doing Eden Fest before he did Coachella.
Right. Oh yeah.
And other people talk, and everyone around us at the time was like, "That's crazy. That's Europe has all kinds of festivals, but that kind of shit is not going to happen in the U.S." And then Perry did it, right? He did it and then we were originally going to do Eden Fest in the U.S., but we couldn't find a spot, and we had all the relationships in Canada, and found Moseport and decided. And we thought that was going to be like a 10-year, 15-year deal. That's the way it was laid out. But, a lot of forces prevented that from happening. Many big forces pulling against us, many stupid things I did. But still, on some level, wildly successful in terms of the music and the influence. Every day are people like, "Oh my God, that show changed my life." And
I've actually posted and said something about that on one of my previous vlogs here. And I actually went through and I was looking at the lineup that was playing there, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is what 1990, come on, and 96. You have this, boom, 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 all these different bands. Howard
Jones.
I remember Mighty Boss Tones, Mighty Boss Tones, and these dudes were on there. They were on stage in the summertime or heat in their full suits. And they were doing I don't know how they did it. I was dying. I was so hot.
It was so cool to have the Buffalo bands there too. All the people from Buffalo, they were like,
I think you had Elk play there. Buffalo,
everybody's like, why are they playing on the main stage? Well, I happen to have it, but we had the other stage with all the other cool stuff on it. And that was such an amazing time. So the simple answer is I imagine all the time. And have had multiple visions of what it would look like to create something again. And I've looked at different time periods, and it takes an incredible amount of energy and money and time today to do something like that. I've often thought of something smaller that would just be really cool. Look at what's happened in the festival world. I had someone, I don't necessarily look at it this way, but I've had several people say to me, "You're part of that. You look at what you did there. That was the biggest festival at the time."
It was. There was.
You
threw that before, like Skuvuvi. You threw that before all those other festivals were out there. I don't remember any. Come on.
Well, even in the U.S., all that had existed prior to that was like the big ones, like Woodstock and Altamont, and there wasn't really. This is pre-Lollapalooza too.
That's what I'm saying. No, I've been to a couple different Lollapaloozas, but that wasn't even around when you were doing this show.
And again, I was influenced by other places. I had been to the Nebworth concerts with Pink Floyd and Eric Clapton and Genesis in the same stage, and I've been to Glastonbury and Reading and these shows in Europe, and I was just like, why is this not happening in the US? It's crazy.
I'm the same way. Whenever I go somewhere and I see something, I'm like, why can't we do that right here?
We did it, in the 60s, but why? A lot of that is because people saw that as a spectacular failure. But then there was, Woodstock 94, which was something that definitely, that's obviously bigger than what we were doing. But on no other scale was that happening. There was always small little local festivals or this massive. But that also, that was happening right around the summer, the time that the Icon closed, and that heavily influenced. That made me say, like, you know what, I can do that. We can do that. Yeah. I maybe should have waited a couple years, but but I would love to see a time where, like as a retirement thing, it's. Even then, I didn't look at it like I need to make a living doing this. That's one of the challenges. You have to see it as a business. It was always just a pure passion of music. We had Green Day, Red Hot Chili Peppers, David Bowie, all like moments away from being at that show.
Right.
And as things, as people were pulling against it. So the energy that pulled that show apart started before the show started. The little known fact is the town, pressured by the big money players in the area, tried to get the show shut down 2 weeks before the event.
Right.
And then the stage roof breached, and we had to hire 2 giant.
Yeah.
I mean, it just kept coming. And most people I know be like, anybody else would have closed that shit down. You didn't. I said, well, whatever, it still happened, right? At least it happened. Yeah. But the municipality was like not having it. We're going to close this down. We hired some big attorneys and said, no, it is happening. And we're going to, you're going to be in court for the next 10 years. And if you stop this at this point, because you've given the permissions. And so there's all that stuff behind it. There were bands that were wavering as we're coming up to the festival. The whole third night was supposed to be a big surprise guest. We had so much in alignment. One of my best relationships was with a guy named Wayne Forte, who represented The Cure, The Hip, and also Bowie.
Okay.
And and also worked with the Chili Peppers. So we're just, one of his things was, as we got closer, he's like, I'm leveraged here. I'm in a place where things go wrong. I'm going to be really screwed with my relationships. And there's so many factors there, man. Like that, without this guy, without Wayne, this show wouldn't have happened. He was such a blessing, such a cool guy in that world of sharks. I mean, the music world has a lot of, not on the musician side, but on the representation side, a lot of just real slimy people.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, and I shouldn't say slimy. They're just people that have different interests. Some are real slimy, because there's always some slimy people.
They're on a different path, and that's not the path that I choose to go on. So I understand.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on that. It doesn't make you a slime ball, even if I perceive it. You're just on a completely different world, and you have to learn to, to maybe not work with. I mean, I had 3 of the 5 biggest promoters in North America come to me within 2 weeks of that show and say, "You need my help."
Yeah.
And I'm going to take it over. And I'm going to put some money in this, and you're going to step aside. And I said, nope.
Yeah, you can't.
Well, I actually had an opportunity, my stubbornness, I had an opportunity to go back to your question. If that had happened, I'd probably still be in the music world, because I looked at it like, no, I don't want to. I had some control issues. I don't trust that that's going to happen, but it would have helped it on some levels. But I certainly hope there's a time that comes. I'm 58. I got a little bit of time where I can do some kind of cool little festival somewhere. I would love to do that.
Let me know, bro. I'll fly up, do a DJ set, no problem.
Yeah, I think we just got to get the band back together. We got to call it Icon, and get music, the DJs and the band, and not do it in the Icon space. I've been hearing that for years. We need an Icon reunion. We need an Icon.
Well, I will say that the impact that Icon made in downtown Buffalo is something that a lot of people who are younger have no idea what's going on. But when they hear the stories, and they hear, like I'm saying, when we get the list together of the different acts that came through, and the
I'll help you with that. I know I have a pretty comprehensive list somewhere. So
all right, that'll be cool.
We've named a lot of them here. I mean, they're just popping out of the memory, but
right.
Eden Fest was like the last hurrah for Icon for me. We're gonna roll the dice, and we're gonna see if this goes into something that's a lifelong thing. Because I had already had that interruption with the Icon. I mean, I thought I'd be in the Icon forever too. It wasn't like I planned. That's an important point that I didn't say. Some people look at it like, oh, you just kind of blew in, blew out. It's like, no. I would have very much loved to still be today.
Oh yeah,
doing that. But I definitely burned the bridge.
If that building was structurally sound, because I do remember when I was managing, when I went into Rage, and we turned Icon into Rage after I left Network, we had the manager from Network come over who was a total idiot, and they ended up firing him. So somehow I got drafted into the position of running the club. And so me and Jimmy Gilo ended up basically building the club from scratch. We went and built the DJ booth and moved it from upstairs down to that back of that main. Yeah.
Rage did pretty good, right? Rage was around for a while.
Well, here's the thing, was that the third floor was so structurally unsound. I remember DJing on that second floor there, and I would see the third floor moving. I could actually stand there and see it moving, and that was like
see this?
A disaster waiting to happen.
Can you see my scar?
No. What is that from?
That is from the ceiling of the Icon. I am in the front booth with Nicolette. She has me taking a money drop, and she's sticking her head out the window, and Leah is over by the dance floor waving her arms and pointing up. Then Nicolette goes, look. So I look, and you see the ceiling above the people dancing starting to peel away, like the sheetrock.
Yeah.
Simple drywall, but sheetrock. So I did like a gymnastic thing. There was that window there. You couldn't walk.
I remember that.
So I dove through the window,
right,
did a somersault, ran through, like plowed through people, and yelled at everyone. Like she's pointing at himself, like, why aren't you telling him to get out of the way?
Yeah.
So I'm running into the dance. This is my only Superman effort of the whole era there. I'm not known for that kind of shit, but pushed people out of the way, yelling, get out of the way, get out of the way. And this whole like 7-foot piece of sheetrock swung down.
Oh.
Landed, and I went up like this, and it hit me here. And I think I pretty much saved some ass, because there were a few people underneath that would have gotten hit.
Could have been hurt really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was that thick of sheetrock and
a
lathe and basically chunks of cement, and it tore through my arm where the I think it's called rebar is, but
rebar, rebar is holding it up there.
That's of course one of the more memorable stories. So then we had to do this whole. There were cracks on the ceiling, partially because, of course, the loud music down, but then you had the people bouncing upstairs.
Yeah, that was it.
But yeah, I mean, in the long run, that upstairs was uninhabitable because of so much of that energy. I mean, we had sometimes a lot of people up there. And I think we're very fortunate, because I would imagine there could have been some really, really bad things.
No, we're very lucky, because the third floor was always packed, both sides. Not just
sometimes downstairs would be nobody and everybody's upstairs. So there were people all the time. It's like, can we just turn the third floor into fourth? Like, no, that wouldn't work. People want the third floor, it's the third floor. But it would shift. You'd see some nights people like, I want to be up there. And that was a good example. We're talking about the mixing of the crowds. Really good, strong mixing of crowd. Very different people cohabitating because they have their own space. And
well, that was too because of the DJs. When you had someone like KO and Chief and the Nomadic Tribe who came in there, Nomadic Tribe had so many different types of people that were following their parties. KO and Chief had their following, and it was just like it was a really perfect melding of the two, because a lot of the crowd that was up there, it didn't matter who was up there on Fridays or Saturdays or whatever. They were just happy to be up there. They didn't want to be on the main floor. They were usually on the third floor only. Yeah. So
because they could smoke their spliffs and they could chill in the corner. And
we didn't smoke weed then. No, we didn't smoke weed. Man, come on,
we did heavier drugs. No. If you don't like my fire, don't come around, because I'm gonna burn one down.
There you go.